My name is DeVenio, Chief Client Officer for Palisade. Palisade, this is the only slide you'll see today. Palisade is in the business of helping clients who use Oracle licensing. Been in business about 13 years, served over 700 clients, from small clients to very large clients. About 30% of the Fortune 500 trust Palisade to advise them on their Oracle licensing. We're focused 100% on Oracle. We're completely independent of Oracle, which is key things, and we're focused on really helping clients get the maximum value out of their investments in Oracle licenses. With that, I'd like to welcome Joe Schuler from Mastercard. I'll let him just give a little background introduction of himself.
Hi, thanks, Dan, for the opportunity to work with you on this podcast. My name is Joe Schuler. I've been with Mastercard for 27 years. I started as a Unix engineer, moved up through the ranks, got good at backup and recovery, led the Unix and the distributed systems teams for about 13 years. Went to the dark side, finance, which is what my formal education is in, for about 4 or 5 years, then went to led the database program for about 4 or 5 years. Spent a couple years heading up operations in Asia, and then came back and now lead the processing services platform teams, which consists of mainframe and nonstop.
Great. Well, thanks for the background. Well, thanks for taking time today too. Mastercard, your organization has leveraged Oracle for a long time, correct? And years ago, you made the decision to invest in Oracle's vehicle, the unlimited license agreement. Could you tell us how you got into that? What was the choice? How's the journey been? And what your strategy is to eventually exit it?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a great partnership with Oracle. We started buying by the drink. And expanded the number of titles within the database space. And I think at the time, we figured our discounts were roughly 75% off list. And so they came to us with a great opportunity to drive our discounts closer to, 90, 98, 99+%, which of course, anyone can make statistics tell you whatever they want them to tell you, right? Or numbers. So we signed our first enterprise agreement when I was in the finance organization, and I was kind of I reviewed all investments for our internal technology organization at the time, and it really did make a lot of sense. So we've signed, I believe, 4, maybe 5 subsequently, they get you in, and they're great investments, and then you really have to kind of be on guard from that point forward to understand really where you're at in the enterprise license arena.
Yeah. What would you say your challenges are? I mean, you mentioned that the unlimited license agreements, it's done. It has some limitations. People. The U is an interesting part of the unlimited side because it is limited to the products you choose, limited to the term, and it's got limitations within the contractual confines of the contract. And a lot of organizations, there's value in if it's maintained. What do you think are the challenges to properly manage and maximize the value? Certainly, since you've had a multitude of years in this process.
Yeah, so let me first say I've negotiated these types of enterprise agreements with at least 4 major suppliers, vendors, OEMs, and I want to leave you with three ideas. First, enterprise agreements are not inherently bad. They're actually quite useful, and give you quite a bit of flexibility. The key is in managing these agreements. These are all long play kind of agreements. You don't dip your toe into an enterprise agreement and jump out of it. And you really have to stay. I think that the most common mistake is people don't stay on top of them and understand their entitlements And if they are fortunate enough to understand their entitlements, they don't understand their exit strategy. And you truly have to understand your exit strategy at all times. And then the third thing is the devil's in the details. So, many of these products are subsumed into other products. Many of them, like Oracle's compression feature, are easily deployed. I mean, if you just do compression equal Y, you now are a happy owner of Oracle compression. And things change, the terms, the conditions are ever evolving. I liken it to a game of whack-a-mole, right? As soon as you close one of the loops with the vendors, someone else opens one and gives you an opportunity to exploit it in your renewal process. And again, this is, I know you're not asking for you're not soliciting an endorsement, but that's one reason we've had a lot of luck or not luck, but we've partnered with Palisades. Palisades is focused on Oracle, and we deal with a lot of deal evaluators and a lot of sourcing specialty organizations. And a lot of them have a very similar mantra, use the clock to your advantage and know your exit strategy. But Palisades, when we first started working with them, not only were they really able to help us validate our inventory, but they also, helped us understand some of the terms and conditions that we could ask for that would drive additional value into the ULA. I think the other thing that's significant in our dealing with Palisades, and I don't know that everyone on the call is in this situation, but most of our ULAs, we're a pretty big organization. We're not the biggest, we're not the smallest. Negotiations have really moved away from P times Q, price times quantity. And really, we find that we are kind of negotiating a Babe Ruth rookie card. It's worth, you find value for value. The vendor finds value at a price point, you find value at a price point, and you work from those two positions. And I think that in many cases, the sales team, they're motivated by the buck. And so I think they sometimes lose sight of some of the T's and C's, and you can, if you have a really good advisor who understands where the value propositions are in the terms and conditions, as Palisades does, I think that's a whole lot more valuable than somebody who just says, you're in the 98th percentile of discount levels and you're positioned for this type of a rebate or things of that nature. So I think that was more than the question that you asked, Dan.
No, that was good. That led into my second question, but that, stimulates me to mention that a lot of times and you hit on it, clients always say, well, when should we start managing or planning our exit from the ULA? And it's like the day after you've signed the contract.
100%.
The important thing is the organizations tend to put a lot of time and effort into price and product, as you say, because that's what Oracle wants you to focus on. They don't want you to talk about the T's and C's. We always tell clients, when you get the first offer from Oracle, get the T's and C's at the same time. It's a parallel effort. Tell Oracle that you're not going to look at price and product independent of the terms and conditions. Because especially in the ULA, acquisition rights and entity rights, things that you could have saved the extra 5% from Oracle and put yourself in a position, cost yourself 20%. And so managing the ULA and educating IT people who are going to execute the licenses on what you finally settled on is very important, because that's how you get away from, oops, we didn't know we didn't have advanced compression in the ULA and we've deployed it. And now you're stuck having to do a new ULA because you had advanced compression. And people think that they're 100% protected from an audit under a ULA, while you're audit resistant, because even Oracle, will try to be nice to people who have this type of engagement. There's a lot of products that are outside of the scope of the ULA, you could be audited for those products. I mean, a lot of times people have gotten into ULAs as a result of a massive audit issue, and the offer that Oracle had is, well, get the ULA and we'll let you off the hook, and that's not a great way to go into ULA. The way you went into it, which is your growth, your expectation, wanted the flexibility, I think is the right way. The other thing, it's an education process, and when you're planning to get out, people always say, well, what's my effective discount? Well, you don't know that until you certify. At the point of certification, you will come up with a number you give the Oracle that says, we are certifying X. Once you have that number, you could divide that X into what you paid for ULA to figure out what was your effective discount. The object is to deploy as much as possible to maximize that effective discount. At the same time, make sure that you're not leaving any compliance issues open, because you want to exit a ULA with two things: maximum deployment, thus maximum value, and minimum risk of compliance issues. So, I know you're now on that last stage of the journey. What are you doing to make sure that when you get to that point in a few years, you're going to be able to accomplish both those?
Yeah, so you kind of described what I call the blowfish effect, right? You want to puff up, or the puffer fish. You want to puff up as big as you can for two reasons. One is because if you do exit, and you want to have a clear line of sight to what your exit would be. You want to get as big as you can, and certainly, using the terms to your advantage, but not doing anything unethical. And then that also serves as a bit of a warning to Oracle that you understand what's going on. And like you said, the audit is so critical. A former Oracle exec who's not with Palisades, told me the first thing when they do an acquisition is strip all license keys off of the product that they're acquiring, because they want it easy to deploy. And they'll tell you, yeah, we want it easy to deploy. We don't want you to have to call us and get keys and make it cumbersome. Well, it also serves as a way that you've now stepped into deployment of a product that you aren't entitled to. And I don't know if I had our lawyers on the call, they would tell you, there's a presumptive commitment. When you deploy something, even if you don't know you're deploying it, you still technically you still owe them for it, even if you just, even if it's, gosh, I didn't know, and fortunately, when you're big, when you do get that, the puffer fish syndrome, Oracle's less likely to accuse you of some of that type of activity. We have worked with some of our M&As where they're very small, and Oracle just they're brutal, especially local market, local country managers. That revenue is significant. $400,000 or $500,000 is a huge windfall in some of those regions. So, I can't emphasize enough knowing the terms, knowing your audit position, because even a small chink in the armor can absolutely bring you to a negotiation point that you really don't want to be at. Especially with Oracle as well. I think, and I'm answering a couple different questions here.
That's okay. This is great.
I think another thing with Oracle, and again, whack-a-mole, when I owned the Oracle footprint, it was all, core-based licensing. We had purchased, 15 or 20 Exadatas, and fastly learned that the new market for them was the SPU license, the license for the disk. And then they started, now I've been away from it, but I still stay in touch with it. They've sliced the processors up. So whereas in one renegotiation, you may feel that having 13,000 cores is a lot of cores of Oracle licensing, then you find out that they basically redefine the terms, or they go to the cloud, or any one of a number of things, and they devalue your investment. So really, it's in those negotiations where you have to foresee some of that and protect your investment through embedding terms and conditions around what the future might hold. Again, there's no crystal ball. So some of it is just relying on the partnership with Oracle to make you whole. But you have to remember that, as you're using the terms to your advantage, they're also watching and seeing, where you're positioning yourself, in an effort to drive up revenue. Because none of these, the one thing that nobody ever tells you about these ULAs is the most basic premise is to continue to drive these ULAs, you have to show net new business, whether it's a new product, whether it's significant growth. They're not. It's not like your your PC licenses where I'm just going to pay the maintenance every year, right? It's really based on building that step up so that they can continue to see the net revenue increase while also driving their maintenance bill. So every time you buy net new product, I mean, their maintenance organization sees an increase in revenue as well. So,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, no, that good point, because sometimes people don't understand, especially when you go through multiple iterations of ULAs, say every 3 years for a period of time. While you can deploy as much as you want and your maintenance is still triggered to the original maintenance and the original deal, when you renew or do a new ULA, your baseline your foundational maintenance is the first one. So it just keeps building, and then you do another ULA because they like your new ULA is for new growth. You still have to pay under the old ULA. And so that maintenance bill keeps just piling on and piling on, piling on. Again, that's another thing that, and if you deploy enough licenses, your cost per license on a maintenance, can be reduced significantly. And then managing going forward, the other thing it's important that once you're out of the ULA, it's re-educating IT on now what are the rules. The rules are different in the ULA versus out of the ULA. And it's just good practice to make sure everybody knows we are now out of ULA. We now have a set amount of licenses. We need to understand where we're using it and make sure we're not using more than we have, et cetera. The other thing is some of our other large clients have said, the good, bad, and ugly of ULAs. You talked about a lot of the benefits. There are some challenges in the fact that there's a perception that if you have a ULA, you might as well do everything Oracle because it's free. Well, you paid for it, right? So it wasn't free, and that sometimes can create a behavior of not looking at alternative solutions. Well, we might as well use the Oracle product for that instead of looking at it because we have a ULA. So how's that? Have you run into any of that? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's still a huge mindset. I mean, you have to encourage, IT to do business cases, even when they're consuming ULA products. Because again, the devil's in the details. So the Oracle-based product might be free, but Golden Gate for replication is going to be a pretty significant spend, or other subcomponents. And just kind of a general comment on ULAs, a lot of large vendors will give you a catalog that you can freely deploy, because it's really a fishing expedition, right? They want your people to pull down, and they have active brand ambassadors that are coming in and saying, hey, this product is exactly what you need. It fits. Oh, and it's free. Well, again, it's free, but then your base becomes larger whenever you go to renewal from a maintenance perspective. So, and that's actually something that we were fortunate enough. So, when you talk to the major vendors, they'll tell you, oh, no, maintenance is flat. It's 22%. We don't even discuss it. And that was one of the things that we were able to negotiate was a deeper discount on the net new maintenance as we went forward. So, but even with deep discounts with ULAs, there's nothing that is as effective in managing your costs as having IT professionals that understand their fiduciary obligation, that understand that everything costs money, even if it's free, right? So whether it's the footprint that you're installing on, or whether it's the staff that supports it is going to be increased, we constantly take a healthy look at all costs associated, the TCO of a product, to make sure that we're positioned well, because. And that's the nice thing about a ULA is it unlocks that capability. So sometimes there are replacement opportunities with other products. So maybe Oracle is positioned very well in your organization, and you can take out, a third-party database, Microsoft SQL Server, Postgres, or other relational databases. And again, I'm not advocating that. I'm just saying that ULAs with all of those vendors give you the ability to truly evaluate the right placing of technology and software.
Great. And then kind of circle back to your initial thing. A lot of organizations, especially large ones, question the need for engaging somebody like Palisade. And we always say we're not instead of you, we're a complement to you, and most of our large clients, see it that way, because you pretty much have three choices in going down this cycle of ULAs, especially going through the certification. Do it yourself. Oracle will do it for free. Or engage somebody like Palisade to assist your organization to maximize. We can touch on the value of the third versus the first two. I think.
Yeah, and I don't think they're exclusive. Again, I'm not anti-vendor. I think, Oracle, all the big vendors, IBM, they all spend a lot of time and money investing in their sales teams, and they have a lot of great information, and you can really work with them to understand and to qualify what your opportunities are. Likewise, we have great internal sourcing professionals who truly understand, terms and contracts and our internal finance partners. I mean, it truly takes a village when you get to the size of these ULAs to truly drive benefit to the organization. Now, specific to Palisade, the reason that we found them as a great complementary asset is because they know Oracle. They've lived renewals, they've lived certifications both on the Oracle side and on the customer side, and they do it all the time, so they can take all of the lessons learned from their most recent negotiations. Yes, they sign exclusivity agreements, and they don't bring anyone's name into the mix, but they know the business, right? When I was a kid, I wanted to learn how to fly on the weekends. And a buddy of mine said, "Let me ask you a question. If you walk into the ER with an appendicitis," he says, "do you want a guy operating on you that does it once every 3 or 4 weeks, or do you want a guy who does it every day?" Needless to say, I'm not a pilot, and gave up that hope. Not that weekend pilots are inherently bad. Again, I'm not bashing anyone in this podcast, but we do find a lot of value with the depth and breadth of knowledge of SMEs. We hire them all the time, right? Whether it's helping us design applications, helping us, migrate platforms, having people who have real world experience, who've been in the trenches very recently, is important. In fact, we find that a lot more valuable than just general benchmarking and baselining organizations, because, benchmarks and baselines, they're numbers, and they can tend to get mushed into one another, and you lose some of that value. So, again, horses for courses. Use the right tool for the right job. Everything's not a nail looking for a hammer. So, use everything at your disposal, because, you're talking about big dollars here, and it's truly the gift that keeps on giving, right? So, the investment that you make today will drive benefit in perpetuity without question, especially around the terms and conditions.
Yeah, and no, that's great. And I think, the last question I have, and I think you mentioned this, and, this is a topic that we're going to be running a panel at a upcoming procurement conference in May. The importance of IT, finance, and procurement working as a team when they're negotiating these types of things, instead of, in some places, IT says, "This is what I want," procurement, "Go give me the best price." I think the organization had that triad that was the one face to Oracle, and we're talking about all of these things are important. And could you explain a little how that works? And it sounds like that's what you've done and benefited from it.
Yeah, we take a true cross-functional team when we do any of our negotiations, because, seldom do you know what you're going to pay. So finance needs to be locked at the hip to do the evaluation and truly understand your impact to budget and your impact to the overall cost of IT within your organization. Likewise, sourcing needs, the feedback of my organization, of my team, to understand why we're doing what we're doing. At the end of the day, these negotiations, and this is one man's opinion. I find that we have to tell our sales organization, the sales organization that's coming to us as the customer, we have to give them a story. We have to explain to them, this is why we're asking you for a reduction. You just walk into a negotiation, you say, you're asking me for $1,000, I'm only going to give you 10. It's just going to fall on deaf ears. You have to explain, look, this is what we paid for. This is where we step to. This is where we step to again. Now you're asking me to go way up here. It doesn't work from a financial perspective on my side. So you have to explain to them, this is why I came to my price point. And you really need all three groups or, actively evaluating the deal on the table, evaluating your position, to put that story together to really help explain your position. Because at the end of the day, that's what wins deals. That's what closes deals, is when an executive on the other side, listens to the story and says, man, that's compelling. I get that. I get why they only want to pay this much money. It seems to work out. And actively having finance engaged, we used to do software development that way, where the developer would hand it over the wall to the tester would hand it over to the wall to the, and we found that ineffective, right? Well, it's the same way with deal making. I mean, I can't hand my requirements off to sourcing and tell them to work hard, and then sourcing hands it off to finance and said, now pay for this. I mean, you really have to be lockstep, and you have to really prepare the way as a team collectively. Because again, these deals go to our CFO for review and approval, because
I mean, the ULA deals are not small, and I think clients like yourself that do that cross-functional is great. And then we always tell clients, because Oracle will put a price and negotiate down. We tell clients, figure out what this is worth and present that to Oracle. Control the discussion. So negotiate up from what you believe the value to your organization is for this particular vehicle that they want to sell you. Rather than have them start at an absurdly large number and negotiate down. It's just a different approach, but it tends to be more effective for the client to be in control of that process. So, this has been great. Thanks for your experience and your insights. I'm sure it's valuable. Anybody have any questions? I don't see any open ones. We're going to keep it about 5 more minutes. Let's see. I know people wait and ask questions. Here comes one.
Thank you for being the first person to ask a question.
That's somebody posed that. Do Oracle licensees typically put entire Oracle license landscape on a ULA, or by intent leave items out? That's a question for both of us. I'll let you answer it first.
It's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we found is that we do keep some things separate. Some things we do, we dip our toe in the water. Certainly we're not getting away from Oracle anytime soon, from a consumption perspective. So, I mean, we may be able to certify. So that's kind of, we know what we have there. Other products, as they bring things into their landscape, as they make acquisitions, and even sometimes just components within the Oracle suite, we choose to keep outside. I think once we reach a critical mass, there's always value in numbers. There's always value in aggregating to a point. But again, that's where the terms and conditions are important, because you have to make sure that even if you aggregate, you have the ability to selectively remove those components when the time comes. So I guess it's kind of a qualified yes. We do ultimately pull everything into single vendor paper. It makes more sense too from a contracts perspective. I mean, you want one contract, you want one PO, all that, all of those items cost money for the organization. So ultimately you should, but again, be very attentive and very conscious of the T's and C's for removal once you do start aggregating.
And from the Oracle perspective, because my past life, I was an Oracle partner, and I actually sold a number of ULAs. So I've sat on the other side of the table, and unlike traditional product sales, it's product price. The number that Oracle wants for ULA ranges, it's variable. They have a number. They don't. Yes, the products you have in there and the term are going to affect, but it's not as elastic as you might think. In other words, there's basic stuff that you're going to put in there, but it's important for organizations because every added product will probably impact the price of the ULA. So IT, should understand, do we need advanced compression? Because it's going to add money. If not, understand that we will not have it and we better not use it. And things like that. I'm giving that as an example. Because Oracle doesn't explicitly leave stuff out, but if the client doesn't ask for it, and then again, it becomes engaged, a lot of times the organization is not aware that there are several options under the database, for instance, that weren't included in ULA. And if you do a standard install, you're installing everything, you're using it, and now you're at risk for audit and compliance issues. So understanding what you're going to buy and why you're going to buy it and the value of it. But at the end, the dollar that they want for ULA is not directly side by side every product. It's more fluid than that. It's kind of what do they think you will pay, and within a scope of products, and the term affects it also. Thanks. Any other questions? Give it another couple minutes for the shy people. All right, looks like that was it. Thanks everybody for your time. Thank you a lot, Joe. I really appreciate it. If you want to get in touch with me, here's the information. If you want to get in touch with Joe, his LinkedIn, you can reach him through his LinkedIn. We appreciate your taking time today. And Joe, I really appreciate your taking the audience through your journey with the Oracle ULA.
Thanks for having me. Always happy to share experiences, and hopefully you'll have some other folks on these podcasts, and I'll be able to get some information from them. So Great. Thanks. It takes a village.
Thank you. Take care.